Imagine if you built your restaurant empire using this motto: say yes and figure it out. That's the mindset driving today's guest, Christian J Fischer, known as the Disruptive Chef. Christian isn't just a culinary entrepreneur with over 20 years in hospitality. He's a true innovator, blending culinary creative with strategic insight to help leaders break boundaries and achieve remarkable growth. In this episode, we dive into Christian's playbook for success, exploring how to build multiple companies from scratch, knowing when to walk away from an investment, and turning your unique hospitality story into a thriving business. And if you'd like a step-by-step insight on how to self-publish a book, be sure to check out episode number 60 on the show. Get ready to think big, act boldly, and embrace a fresh perspective on what's possible. Welcome to the No Hesitations podcast, the show where restaurant leaders learn tools, tactics, and habits from the world's greatest operators. I'm your host, Kristen Marvin, with Solutions by Kristen. I've spent the last 2 decades in the restaurant industry and now partner with restaurant owners to develop their leaders and scale their businesses without wasting time and energy so they can achieve work-life balance and make more money. You can now engage with me on the show and share topics you'd like to hear about, leadership lessons you want to learn, and any feedback that you have. Simply click the link at the top of the show notes, and I'll give you a shout out on a future episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting. Christian, thank you so much for being here today. We are going to have a blast. I'm going to ask you in just a second to talk about all the companies that you have. You have 14 different companies. And we're going to kind of unpack how you've grown and established those over the years and what your process is. But let's have you start with what each company is. So 14. So lay it on us. What are all the companies that you own?
So first, Kristen, thanks a lot for having us. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and kind of maybe bring your audience into a little bit of what we do. So when we say we have 14 companies, so we always said we have 14 LLCs. So one of the things we learned is that each of the new projects, we assign an LLC, and that supersedes the reports into another company. So our overall arching company is called the Fisher Research Group. And under this, we have 14 different entities.
And what are the 14 entities?
So it's a little bit of everything. So we always make a joke that we make our decision quick and we change our mind slowly. So one of them is, and this all we became in by default. So we have our restaurant division, we have a consulting division, we have a plant-based food division, we have a shrimp company out of default. One of my partners came back from vacation and said, "Christian, you got to be so excited. I just bought 47% of Nordic seafood." I was like, "But you don't know anything about shrimps." He says, "No, but you do. And you are my 15% partner in this." So,
Nice.
That's one of those. At one point, we had a fire suppression company. We had a brewing company. We have a equipment company where we melt down empty beer cans, and we make cooking equipment out of it. And one of our partners puts a coating on it, which is the same coating which is used by the European NASA when things enter back into the atmosphere. So it kind of deflects heat. So it allows you to cook something on it really quick. And then we have our digital side. So we have my brand, which is Christian J Fischer. We have a publishing company. We have a leadership coaching company. We have a mastermind. We have a media company. We have another company where we bring talent. It's like a talent agency company. So we have really a little bit of everything. And then our main business on that side is we own 3 food service GPOs.
Love it. So let's go back a little bit here because
Yeah.
the culinary world and the food world and the entrepreneurial world, this was not what you originally set out to do, right? You wanted to be a doctor, but then you cut into a 57-year-old and it all went downhill from there. What? Take us back to that moment.
So my story is my parents owned a hotel. So my dad is a civil engineer. My mom was the hotelier. So we had a hotel. We actually had, there was three portions of the hotel. There was the overnight hotel. There was the spa version of the hotel. And then what we had was called a sports hotel, which was the sports side. And we were a seasonal hotel. And growing up there, I could see how my parents were always struggling. It was great. I knew exactly when we are in season, we usually open up the last week in September because in Austria we have snow beginning September all the way to the end of May. And then we closed the first week in June. And when I wanted something, I knew exactly October, November, December, I can ask my parents for anything, I will get it. But if I ask August 1st, I will get a hard no. And I was seeing how they struggled. So I wanted to do something else. My first thing is I wanted to be actually a pilot. And my dad said, but you suck. You don't like heights. I was like, never really thought about that. Okay. Which was on I want to be a medical doctor. He says, okay, good. And he allowed me actually to go after school. I went to medical school, and the first few weeks were great. And then it came up, by turn, you have to go and actually observe an actual operation. I will never forget this. This 57-year-old guy had his appendix burst and had to be removed. And my name, Christian Fischer, was the very first from ABC. And they was like, oh, ABC, okay, Christian, you come over here. You need to mark him. And they actually used this marker, this is not 35 years ago, where the incision had to be. And we had to practice, with the knives on pineapples, oranges, stuff to cut them. I was like, I got this. All I remember, I cut him. And then there was this I was just I passed out. So
you passed out right then and there in front of the whole class, in front of the doctor.
I found out, second thing, I did not good in seeing other people bleed. That was maybe a red flag. But as I came to it and I was saying, okay, Christian, you passed out. I mean, people laughing. He says, you went face down first. I was like, okay, that's really good. And then this guy comes in and says, hey, we just heard what happened today. You need a real which way you want to go.
Wow, that quickly. It just takes that one instant.
No nonsense.
Wow.
And it was, hey, do you want to consider being a chiropractor?
Is that the natural progression? If you can't be a doctor, you go chiropractor? Is that what happens?
Okay, that's
all of our chiropractors have passed out in operating rooms?
That what happened to be on a Tuesday. I came home on Wednesday. And my dad said, what are you going to do with your future? I was like, I'm going to take the summer off. I'm going to travel. He says, okay, you have till Friday. And on Friday, he says, you need to go to this hotel and learn to be a hotelier because you need to take over the hotel. Very reluctant, I did that. And, my dad is a civil engineer, very by the book. He set me up with a hotel which had, in 9 years, nobody graduated a 4-year program. The owner was super tough, high standards, a five-star hotel. And I walked in the very first day. I was like, oh, that's got to be a lot thing. We had to wake up 5 a.m. and we had to work to 11 p.m. Mm-hmm. And because they thought you had trade, you didn't get paid for it. They give you a tip. They give you pocket money. And so the first few days, I hated it so much. I jumped out the back window, went home. My dad brought me back the next day and said, it's going to bring discipline. And that's how my culinary career started.
So what was it about? You said you didn't want to go into hotels because you saw your parents struggling so much. What were they struggling with?
I loved the service thing, but it was, we had almost 280 employees at the time and no money coming in. And, he still paid them in Austria, everybody's union, because the way it's set up. So he had to pay him if they worked or not, because that's just the way the jobs were set up at the time. And I could see the strain he put on. He always was stressed out, paying people over the summer when they weren't working. And I also seen that he always felt that he was kind of, there was nothing else to do. If you own a hotel, you're in the service industry, there was no way to do anything on the side or doing anything else. And he always felt trapped in the hotel. It made us good money, but it was also trapped for him because there was no way out. And that's for me, I was like, that's not a healthy thing. I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters, so there's 11 of us, and I'm the very last person left in the industry. So everybody else from my siblings, there's nobody left in the food industry. I think because of that. And we were always, free labor. After school, we came back, we did homework, and we worked in the hotel. And for me, I was like, hey, maybe it's time to do something else. And for me, I think that's what triggered it all.
What made you jump out the window?
So, very first day, 5 a.m., I'm young at the time. I'm 15 years old. I go 5 a.m. This guy comes in, was the chef, and he said, "Good morning, little effers." And I was like, "Oh, good morning, chef." He says, "What is so effing good on this morning?" I was like, okay, that's going to be a long day. And he was very tough. And then it was the old kitchen brigade. He was sitting on this high chair on the serving table, and he had the microphone. And I will never forget this. He's sitting in there, and there was on the gentleman who did the pastry. His name was Manfred. He would go into the microphone. "Hey, boy, make him nice." Meant 2 Napoleons, make it nice, And so I brought up the 2 Napoleons because I was the helper. And he looks down, he says, "Okay, now you need to get powdered sugar because you have to cover the mess you just created." I was like, I didn't do nothing. I just brought it,
Wow.
Then I was like, this is not for me. And he was just pretty tough, very disciplined. Hey, nobody talks until you're spoken to. Make sure you follow up. And everything was, yes, chef. What you see today, I don't think he would get away with what happened back then. And I was like, I don't want it. It's not good. So I jumped out. I was like, I don't want to work from 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night for free. And
Unlock the skills to transform your leadership with the Hospitality Leaders Roadmap. Move from ordinary to extraordinary, packed with practical strategies to lead with confidence and create lasting impact in your restaurant. Visit kristenmarvin.com/audio to download your free audiobook today.
Coaches like you are already growing their brands and attracting new clients with professional podcasts. But between scheduling episodes and audio editing, starting a podcast might feel like another thing on your to-do list. At L. Connor Voice LLC, we make podcasting simple and effective, from recording to promotion, so you can focus on your clients. You already have the material. I can turn it into engaging podcast episodes that can boost your brand and expand your reach. Discover how easy it can be to launch your show with us. Schedule a free consultation. Follow my links in the episode notes. Reach out and let's talk.
It became, I think it was on year 3. So many people just left. They said the industry is not for me. And then I was the senior guy. And now we have the chef, his name, he was MasterChef Karl Fuerdinger, German guy. And I built a relationship with him, and he says, "Christian, so you are now with me. I will teach you what I know." And he really spent a lot of effort and a lot of time in investing in me because I was the guy. And then all of a sudden I felt like, oh, he's treating me different. He kind of respects, and he says, "Christian, don't do this, watch that." And he did have some fun, where he said, "Christian, go make mayonnaise." And at the time, he made mayonnaise fresh with egg yolks. And then he came by to hit me when I put the oil in it. So my mayonnaise broke. And then I had, "Okay, you need to bring it back." And I was risking. He says, "Good job. Tomorrow I'll show you how to use a blender." I was like, "Really? You're making me work for 2 hours, and now there's a better way?"
That's
but
amazing.
he was an old school guy. And for me, what I learned through that is that everything we do is steeped in history. And at the time, I always thought, I hated that guy so much. I always said, when I ever drive, when you come down the road, I will run you over and I will back up on you, because he was so tough. And now we became friends. And I always tell the story now. I mean, he since passed. But everywhere I ever went, I said, "Hey, I work for Karl Fuerdinger." "Oh, okay, you got a job." I was like, oh, I mean, he was so well respected. And when he made a call on your behalf, it was in.
Wow.
And the last few years, I did a 6-year apprenticeship. I graduated as a butcher, baker, a server, and a cook. And
Awesome.
he was very instrumental in that. He he put a lot of effort and a lot of time in me. And
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So at 22, you decide to open your first restaurant, a Wiener Schnitzel concept?
So yeah, so the story with that. So the funny story is, I actually I was really young. Opened up this restaurant. I opened up this first restaurant. It looks great on the.
Did you buy it or take the lease, or how did that work?
So the story is, it looks really good on paper. Oh, he had his first restaurant at 20, but the reality was, I was on my way back to work, and a drunk driver hit me. I was on a motorcycle.
Oh, shoot.
And I broke my second vertebrae. Broke my arms, and so in the hospital for a month. And in Austria, because everybody's union, I was 56% handicapped, so nobody would hire me. And so I had this guy come from the government and said, "Hey, Christian, what are you going to do? You have the ability to retire because you're 56% handicapped, because nobody will hire you." And I was like, "No, I'm not doing that. I don't want to retire." And I started my first restaurant. And the first restaurant was the lease I had. It wasn't really a lease. It was somebody's empty space. They wanted to build a restaurant in there. They ran out of money. So they said, "Hey, we working up on the capital. You can have it for 2 years. And when we ready to expand it, you out." It's like, "Okay, you got it." So I didn't know anything on how to run a restaurant, because, I knew what we did at home. So I got up at 3:00 in the morning. I went to the butcher shop. I asked him to cut my meat. I went to the process place. I bought my produce. I was at the restaurant at 8, 9:00 in the morning. We served lunch and dinner. And for me, I couldn't find staff at the time. So we had this genius idea. We put a salad bar outside, and this is now, in the late 80s. We put a salad bar, and then just the entree comes. And it became our thing, because people loved that, because they got the salads while I made the entree. And the entree and the starch came from the kitchen. It was the simplest that. We had 6 items on the menu, and you could have it baked, air fried, or pan fried, or you could have it grilled. And that was it. And I had a friend come to me and said, "This is pretty cool. I have a restaurant. You know what? We should do this concept in my restaurant. I make you a partner." "Oh yeah, I do that." So we did that. It was a bad idea. Eventually I had to buy him out. And then I became the guy in town when somebody had an empty space. "Oh, just ask Christian to do one of his things," And I had 5. And then this guy comes in and says, "Hey, I have the hotel right down the street. I was thinking you should put one of your concept into my hotel, and you pay me rent, and you pay me, royalties." I was 22 years old. I didn't know. I was like, "Oh yeah, I do that." So I went in there. It was a terrible idea. So, but we had to do breakfast. We don't do breakfast, So we had to learn the whole breakfast idea. But lunch and dinner was great. And during that time, I always tell people, and that became our philosophy, I always joke about it, that I say yes to everything and figure it out afterwards. And we serving lunch. This guy wants to speak to the manager. I come out there, and he says, "Hey, can I speak to the owner?" I was like, "Okay, I'm the owner, not of the hotel, but the restaurant." He says, "Oh, I love what you do. Would you be willing to franchise it?" I was like, "I have no idea what franchising is." But in my thing, I was like, "Oh yeah, I do it," 2 weeks later, he comes back and says, "Okay, we want you to bring this to the US. In Westchester, New York is one of our hotels. We want to do it." I was like, nobody said anything. Let's go to America, kind of thing. So they bought the concept for me, and I had to agree to work with them. It was Nestle. And I had to agree with them. We're working with them for 20 years. I worked with them eventually for 18. So, and our restaurant concept became the hotel concept for Stouffer Hotels.
Okay.
And
yeah, let's go back to when. So you're 20 years old. You open this first location. You're open for lunch and dinner, but you didn't have dinner business, right? You didn't have a lot of dinner business. It was mostly lunch. Is that right?
Yeah. So that was our thing. So lunch was our thing. And for dinner, we had 5, 10 people come in, and we were like, "Hey, how can we scale dinner?" And somebody said, "People love music." And at the time, all we had was beer and wine, just really simple, straightforward. And we were on the corner. So schnitzel, is a veal cutlet, and the corner is egg. So our place was called the Schnitzel Egg, so it was the thing, the veal cutlet corner. And so we had this guy, Günther, we'll never forget him. He was one of our guys, says, oh, I play music and I have a huge following. I was like, you have a huge following? So he played traditional Austrian music, which I hated, but he brought in people for dinner. And then eventually it became that lunch crowd was more business and business because people needed to be in and out quick. And for dinner, we had this older crowd. And it became kind of our thing during lunch, business, dinner. And it kind of worked out. And my third restaurant that opened up, I hired a finance person because I didn't know. I knew we made money. I didn't know how much money we made, And so it was one of those things we learned by default. And it's a funny thing. The guy I hired or partnered with at the time is still my finance guy today, 35 years later.
That's amazing. So were you, you had this training, this culinary training, right? You knew how to serve, you knew how to be a butcher, but you said you didn't know anything about the business. How were you running the restaurant?
So whatever I seen from home, so I was told my dad, says, hey, what should I do? And his thing was make sure you retain control. That was always his thing. He says, make sure you get the right product. If people pay this much, make sure you give them the same value. And for us, I went in there and said, hey, at the time, serving size is 6 ounces. How about I get away with 5? I was like, hey, to do 5, and nobody ever complained about it. So for me, I learned that by default on the side because it's not something we were taught at school. It was really asking my dad, who is, back then I thought he was crazy. Now I quote him, but he was really my guy. And then he sent me up with one of his guys, which was my first quote unquote finance guy. And this guy put so many guardrails up. I was like, I don't really want a finance guy because he does no fun. But by default, I always were able to find great people, which enjoyed, being part of this. And a lot of them are with me for a very long time. And
what was the moment where you got the idea that like this concept is going to work? I know you said you had a partner come and say, do this with me. But like, when did the juices start flowing for you where you were like, I think I'm going to open multiple businesses?
Yeah. For me, it was really as we had place number 4, because at place number 4, it was the first time I felt we knew exactly what equipment we needed, how much tables, how many staff. It became kind of a system because one thing for me always was I wanted, hey, how can we make tomorrow better than we did today? And for me, I'm a big note taker. And so it was really the 4th one. And the 4th one, by the way, happened to be the best location. And that was always the biggest money because of the 4th for me was, if I can duplicate this and do more, my thought was just do little corners and we do all the corners nobody wants. And because our thing at the time by default, you could have it sit down and eat, or you could have it as a takeaway, as a sandwich. And that was, I think, the uniqueness. It wasn't because I was so creative. It was more out of necessity because I was like, I can see it. My very first restaurant said 38 people. And during lunch, there was a line and I was like, I need to figure out a way to serve more people. And if I don't sit, how about I give it to them to go? And at the time, I wrapped them because I learned as a butcher. I wrapped them with butcher paper, what I learned at school.
Yeah.
People said that was awesome because it didn't leak or anything else. So it became kind of our thing. And for me, like I said, I always said, I got really lucky with a lot of things. I got lucky that I had some really good people which invested a lot of time in me. And 4 for me was where I knew, hey, we have something. As we opened up 5, the mistake I made that we got bigger, I thought, now how about I make it twice as big? Was a mistake. There was the first one, which was not on a corner. It was under underpass. It was an old restaurant, and we took it over. It was 3 times the size of what we really needed. That was tough. And that was the one I learned the most from because we had to have more staff. We didn't have enough parking. It was just a few things which I never considered back then.
Yeah, everything is just an experiment, right? Yeah. Your people, your concept. I love the simplicity of what you did. What are the restaurant concepts that you have today?
So today my partner is Swedish. So it's Swedish Austrian. And it's a fine dining restaurant. We're in Florida. And we have the first restaurant. We can't share 100% what we're going to do, but we hired a Michelin star chef. And the idea is to have a diners club. So you come in, you pay one sum, it includes tip, it includes the 10 courses, includes all the wines which goes with it. And when you leave, you can buy the wines you just had. So that's going to open up in a few months.
I love it. So you've got the restaurant arm of your company. What happened after that? How was the research company formed? What was your next idea?
We always tell the story. We open up our first one it was in March of 2020. We all know what happened in April of 2020. So we opened up in March 2020. We opened 6 weeks and COVID hit. And thank God we were in Florida because Florida never shut down. But for me, I couldn't travel. I live in Connecticut. My partner's Swedish. And actually, he went back home. His dad got sick. And Sweden wouldn't allow him to leave the country for a year. So we needed to figure something out. And I got one of the last flights down there, and the conversation was simple. Okay, you are the channel manager. Right now, you're the CEO. Okay, you own 15%. We did profit sharing. We said, hey, we take 50% of the profits and we share it amongst 5 people, which was the channel manager, the chef, the sous chef, the front of the house manager. And then we had like a liaison, which came in and helped. And again, not because I was so genius, that was the only thing we were able to do. We made consistent money with that, and it became, a great concept. We were just approached to do some other stuff for our country club, which is being built not far from where we are. Somebody bought 450 acres, and he asked if we can do all 5 restaurants. We also were approached by the Mandarin concept. In Boca Raton, they have the first Mandarin resort, and they offered us the nicest spot to put a restaurant in there. So now we finally at a point where people are coming to us, and it's been consistently good. We have really simple menu. We call it it's Swedish Austrian peasant food. We just do it in a fun way, and it became our thing.
I love it. So you fly down there, you make this decision to start profit sharing with your leadership team. Were you like 100%? I mean, obviously you were 100% invested in them, but were they all really strong leaders, or were you like, we're going to have to do some work with these guys?
So we were really, we were really lucky. We had a good team. We had to replace one person, and I was the front of the house person. But everybody else is still with us. And for me, I was there. I said, there's 2 things we can do. We can shut this thing down and go our separate ways, or you guys work with me, and we need to find a way to make it work. And the way we make it work, we have a Monday morning check-in call, and then we check in every other day. Hey, how did the day go? What did we do? What we didn't do? And let's improve. And as we progress, because everybody says, in 2-3 months, this is over. I said, then we're going to go back to normal. And then as things gotten progressively worse and everything got shut down, we were worried. But again, lucky that we were in Florida. In Florida, we were just able to have 60% capacity. Yeah. And in the plaza where we are in Florida, there's multiple restaurants, but we were the only one which opened. So for us, again, we got really lucky. Yeah. And the way this thing kind of worked out for us.
When you gave your leadership team that profit share, did it like flip a switch for them? Were they all like immediately more invested in bringing solutions? I mean, how did that change
we always talk about it, that food cost went down 1.5% the next week because the chef just looked a little bit different. And I think the ownership of what they exhibited and what they did, I think any restaurant should do it. And actually we do it with all the other ones now. Because if people have skin in the game, there's a different way, the way they look at their position. And they also know, hey, if we collectively make a decision, but it costs the profit, the end of the day, out of the profit line, they all get a hit. It's not just me. Yeah. So decisions were made a lot different. And yeah, we had a good collective group.
How did that impact the staff? Did it start to feel kind of corporate and like that we were tightening the screws and now people are looking out for their money? I mean,
no, for them it was that they had ownership in this. We were always very transparent. This is where we are. This is what we need to do. Hey, what do you feel we need to do? And we took a lot of their feedback into effect. And what I found through this process is if you allow people to become the best version of themselves, that people will over deliver. And that was really, our experience down there.
Love
And
it.
they did amazing. And like I said, we had to replace one person because I think this whole thing went to his head, but everybody else is still there and they're doing an amazing job. And for me, I think that's the way to run restaurants today because we have no labor issue. People stay with us forever.
So what was the next company that came on the line?
So we also had a GPO. We opened that one up in April of 19. So my partner had the largest GPO in Europe. And for me, as COVID happened, I was still in my corporate job. I was the chief culinary officer for a $4 billion company. And I seen COVID as an opportunity for me to do something else because as we started shutting down facilities at the time, I had a 2-year non-compete. I went to the leadership and said, hey, I think I want out. And if you let me out, you don't give me any money and I don't owe you any time. And it was a perfect time. I would say COVID happened for me, not to me. And they said, yes. So I walked away a free man, otherwise I would have had a 2-year non-compete. Okay. And we did the GPO, my partner.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to go back to that for a second because you were with Compass Group for 18 years. And for those that don't know, they have Bon Appetit, LinkedIn, Google, right? All these. Did you say, okay, I'm going to leave Compass and I'm going to duplicate this model, but I'm going to do it where I'm passionate? Is that kind of where you got the structure from?
So my thing was, I always had side hustles. At the time, we had a magazine franchise at one point. I had laundromats. We had gas stations. We always had a little bit on the side. And at the time, I started what is now my digital thing. I had a nonprofit, which was called the Culinary Leadership Academy. We had some online trainings out there. One of them was our 30-day leadership self-discovery course. And so we all have that out there. And for me, I was like, I always made a certain amount of money. And I thought, hey, if during COVID I can build this, you know what, I can very easily live on that. It was hard to walk away from a very good job, company car, good benefits, great bonuses. Yeah. But for me, the risk was worth the reward, and did it. So we did then the GPO. So the GPO specializes in college campuses and multi-unit campuses. We call it a campus dining purchasing society. And we are different than anybody else. We don't do contracts. We don't cost our clients anything. And you could still get into our $50 billion buying power and get great discounts on the products coming in the back door. And that does fairly well. So we had the best physical year this year. So we've been growing. So it's been a really good endeavor. And
so when you have a new idea, and you're building these businesses, are you getting the idea and then going, I'm going to go find a partner for this and then we're going to build it? Or I'm assuming people are now coming to you going, Christian, I've got this idea, be my partner, because you've got all the resources to help me be successful.
Yeah, so with the shrimps, we did what we are shrimp kings. So what we do is we harvest baby shrimps on the coast of Scotland. We cryogenically freeze it within 10 minutes of getting them harvested. We ship them to Indonesia. In Indonesia, we hand peel them, put them in brine and ship them back. And we call ourselves shrimp kings. It's a hand peeled shrimp. So we did that. And then after that, people started coming to me. One of them is where somebody came to me and said, hey, Christian, you have experience in the ice cream industry. Do you know anybody who can make CBD ice cream cookies? Yeah, you know me. I said, oh, yeah, I do. I figured it out.
Have you ever said, yes, I do, and you have no idea, but you're going to figure it out behind the scenes?
I think in 85% of them, I was like, I had no idea. We make it work. We figure it out.
Yeah.
And it became one of the things. And then I became at a point where I got approached by international companies. And so international companies, it's now our consulting division, which we call Fisher Hospitality. And for us is we had a company out of Spain. We've been with them now 3 years. They make an encapsulated oil molecule, absolutely amazing. And the way we work with them as a consultant, but rather than being as commission and other stuff, we want equity. So that became our thing. So we going now and partnering with companies and saying, hey, okay, you offer us this much money. How about you give us half? And then you give me a buyout on the tail end. And that became our business philosophy and our business model.
Christian, when you are signing on to these companies, creating these companies, being becoming a partner, whatever it is. How are you designing your role and your relationship and everybody else's roles in the company?
So for me, the first thing I always do is I'm the guy. Let me do and learn everything. And then for me, I come back and say, hey, how can I streamline like this? Or who can I bring on as my partner to manage this for me? And that became our thing. So for me, I want to learn everything. I don't want to be proficient in everything, but I understand how it works. Because for me, what I know I'm really good at is kind of commentalize it and bring in the people which can be supportive. And over the years, we have now our staff, I think, is 178. And we have, some really good people which help me doing this. It sounds great that we have all of these businesses, but very few I'm involved with on a daily basis. We have more on the oversight because we have the teams manage it within it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's three things. It's really simple. We always, and hopefully we can say this, because everything we do is no bullshit, no ego, no lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, when we get together as a group, if I know I'm not being BS'd, I don't need to push my ego on somebody or somebody on mine. And if we come from 100% vulnerability, because we don't lying, is we get stuff done. And that became our business model. And our business model is we don't want to maintain a business. We want to make it grow and then eventually sell it off. And that's became, our model. And for us, how we structure them, I always look at myself as a key player, as not the guy, because the moment I'm the guy, I can't do anything else. So for me, I always try to find the right person to manage it for us. And there's some amazing human beings out there.
Yeah. How are you balancing learning and developing a new concept with being able to just stay connected with all the other companies?
So if you ask my team, it's a lot of hours and a long time. So for me, usually I'm here in the office between 7:30. I do my calls for the Middle Eastern market in the morning. I do my European calls after that. Then we do the calls here in the US. In the afternoon, I do the West Coast calls. And then I have some time between 2 and 6, which is for me. I work on my stuff and everything we need to get done. And then I go home, usually have dinner with my family, or I come here to my office. And then from 8 p.m. to midnight, I work on some strategy stuff, what we need to do to grow. And then usually between 9 and 10, I have calls with the Asian market. We have a client out of China, one out of Indonesia. So we do those calls, and by 11 o'clock midnight, I go home. So a lot of people saying, Christian, how do you do what you do? I work 15, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yeah.
Have you walked away from a business yet?
So we have. And on some of them, I probably should have done it earlier. I think the hardest thing is letting go of control. And sometimes you are so invested in a business and you have so much equity and time, money and stuff invested in that, it's hard to walk away from. What I got really lucky, one of my business mentors is the former CEO of Cadbury Schweppes Worldwide. And when I meet with him, he always tells me, hey, bring me your numbers. And then he's the guy, hey, this is time. You need to flip this. You need to let that go. And for me, I trust him. And when we have those meetings, the next day we make the change. And we currently just shut down one of our other divisions, but there's an opportunity to do something else. So for us, as we shut that division down, we're looking at it. Hey, how can we take, the money we spend on that division and the labor we had, how can we bring it into something else and provide value to the organization? And we give everything an 18-month lifespan. Every 18 months, we need to reevaluate or get rid of it. So for us, that particular business, we went in longer than we needed to, because I felt some loyalty with the person who started it with me. We should have probably shut it down 6 months ago. But yes. And then for me also, and to the audience, sometimes it's really hard to let go because there's some emotional involvement in that. And for me now, where I know we shut it down, in my mind, I was like, oh my God, we have all this free time now. How can we structure and make sure we get some productive stuff onto the marketplace? So for me, the biggest thing I learned from my coach was, hey, everything has a birthday. We call it a birthday because we celebrate or we say goodbye. And that's how we manage them.
Wow, I love that. So one of the amazing resources that you have is this publishing company where you're helping people like me in the hospitality industry wanting to build businesses and
Yeah.
provide resources and make an impact. Write a book in a very, you've got your process, it's streamlined, right? Incredible. And then you're helping people build businesses off of this. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, that became auto default. So I was really lucky. I wrote a lot of books for Nestle. I wrote the Dollhouse cookie cookbooks for them.
Still my
And
favorite cookie recipe of all time.
thank you.
Grew up with it. Love it. Yep.
And so I wrote some books on my own. My very first one, How to Make a Turkey in a Garbage Can. Not a great title. Don't Google it. We sold a whole 10 copies. And then I thought, oh, you know what it was? I didn't have a video. So we made a VHS mistake. Okay. Don't Google it. But we had this thing. And then our second book was our first ebook. And it was called The Chef's Secrets, the 99 chef secrets nobody wants you to know about. And it was the 99 burger recipes. It was the 99 things. So that was our thing. And so we wrote some of those. They did okay. And then as COVID happened, I said, I always want to write a book called For the Love of Austria. It's my home country. And I had it in the works for 7 years. COVID happened. My wife said, you got to get that book done. And I was like, getting the book done. And then at the time, a friend of mine came to me, hey, my mother-in-law has this restaurant. She doesn't write down a single recipe. The restaurant is amazing. Can you teach me how to write a book? Because I want to write a book to leave a legacy for her. And then somebody else comes to me and said, hey, I own this online training platform, and I have 6 gyms, and I want to teach people to be healthier. Do you think you can help me write a book? I was like, yeah. Say yes, we figure it out. And then during the process, we kind of developed this 8-step process. And now we can help you get a book on the marketplace in 8 weeks. And how we evolved, we started out that we were on a call every Tuesday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. East Coast time. When people called in, so when you signed up to our program, you had access to it forever, because if you want to write another book, do this. And then we said, okay, this is not really scalable. How about we do 3 levels? We do a DIY, where you watch the way to do your own book. Then we do done with you, and we do done for you. And we found that the biggest success we have with done for you books. So now we help our clients. You give us all your crap, and 100 days later, we give you back a finished book. So also what we found with the clients, what we worked is, when they're really passionate about a project and they have a great book, they want to do more. And by default, as people asking for the book, they need to provide back to the clients which buy the book. And then we teach them to build a platform, to build a business around it. And we had one of my very good friends was our very first client. I says, hey, can you do test drive this with me? And I figure it out. So we're doing this thing. He has his book. He makes $400,000 on the new platform the first 10 months. I was like, I think we onto something. I have another friend of mine saying, hey, I know you wrote a book 2 years ago. Can we help you with this platform? I think I have an idea. He didn't have the success as the first guy did. I was like, okay, we're onto something. And now, so what we offer our done for you clients, so we help you to get the book done. So all you need to give is your manuscript, because the only thing we do not do is write, and we don't edit, for 2 reasons. With the 400 plus clients we had now, I had one of our guys, his name is Henry, and Henry was our editor. And every time I read the book, all the books, I was like, they sound like Henry, because Henry has one style. And I was like, no more Henry, you can't edit any books anymore. And so, because what I think makes a book unique is when somebody picks it up and they have a relationship with you, and I pick up your book and I read your book, I can say, oh my God, I can hear her say that. She uses that word all the time. I can hear her teaching me this. And so I think that's the power of the book. And so what we learned is that the book is great. You have the book on the marketplace. That, 95% of all authors sell less than 500 copies in a lifetime. So we realized it's not about the sale of the book, it's what the book allows you to do. So we helping them build a speaking platform on an online training platform around it. So if you're part of our Done For You program, you get a full year marketing support. We build you an e-commerce website. So we are in this. And then we offer 2 versions of that. You could pay it and do it, or you allow us some invest our stuff into it, but we take equity of your company.
I love it. I love what you said about the editing process, because I reached out to 6 different editors, and I had some help of like what to look for and what questions to ask and
Yeah.
things like that. But for me, I was looking for the relationship. I was looking for how quickly they were to respond. I was looking for if
Yep.
they were excited to take on the project. But I specifically asked for somebody that at one point in their life had worked in the hospitality industry, because I wanted them to understand my verbiage
Yeah.
and not cut out my slang and,
Mhm.
or say like, what does this mean? I wanted them to know who the audience was. So I love the platform aspect of speaking engagements. Training, when you're talking about training, are you talking about online courses?
Yeah, it's so what we found was there's a way of selling a book and there's a way of selling a book. Because if you're a speaker, we teaching them when you out there to speak on your book, allow them if you're allowed to make an offer off the stage, or if you can sell it in the back of the room. Because when you make an offer off the stage, it could be not the book, but the program you have.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also learned, if your book is really good, I know that people want to know more about you. And as we do the book, when we start up, we call it a launch team. The launch team eventually becomes your cheerleader. They eventually become your private Facebook group. And as people come into the private Facebook group, they're saying, Christian, you taught me this thing. I absolutely love it. What else you got? Because now you need to start building that relationship. So what we're teaching with our program is that when you have that reader, don't let him hang out there. Give him more of you, because they bought your book for a reason. Let them into your world. Let them experience you from wherever they are. And the easiest thing to do this is with a private Facebook group. And if you go live every once or twice a week, and he says, hey, I just did this with my book. If you also read my book, I should have rewritten this, or I want to add a new chapter. Hey, I look for 10 people which want to be part of this thing. So you create your tribe, you create your people. And then as you do this, there is somebody who's going to say, hey, Kristen, I love your book. Can you help me with my business? Because my business needs you. And I can do it myself reading the book, but I want to cut my learning curve. Can you please become my coach, consultant, or business partner?
I love it.
And that's where we want the book to go. And our program is called the Book Builder Blueprint. We try to rebrand it, but we come back to that, because I know when you write one book, you will have more.
Yeah.
And we help you to write a book, not the book.
Yeah.
And also, we promote self-publishing. So you have all the rights to the book. Then you can have your own content out there. It's so much easier to work than working with a publishing company. Yeah. Not saying that there's not a space for that.
Sure.
But the way we do it is because now it becomes easy. So for an example, one of our clients wrote a book about barbecue. And there's a very famous equipment company came to him and said, hey, we would like to buy the rights for your book for 5 years. We give you multiple 6 figures. If you can change the front cover to our cover, you can leave all the stuff and we take your book and promote it as our book for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's an option.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, no, and that's what we teach, and that's what we want people to do, because there's more things you can do with your book than just being the book.
Yeah.
And the book needs to become an extension of you. So if you have somebody else edit it and it doesn't sound like you when people read it and they meet you, you don't have that relationship with that audience. Mm-hmm. And have the book become an extension for people just to get to peek behind the scenes or behind the curtain to see who you are and what makes you tick, and then build on that.
If somebody like me has already written the book, can I still come to you and say, hey, help me build the business out of this?
Absolutely. So for us, because the book is the platform, and then also for us, we have that intake process, which takes about 2.5 hours. Hey, what is the goal with the book? Is it an extension of you? Do you want to market a service? Do you want to market the idea, the technique, or you want to teach? And then we jointly come up with a platform, and we ask people to start small and test the waters. And what we gotten really good at is defining where is there space to do this. And also what we gotten good at by default, I always use my book for an example. Always travel with a book. That's my, to any writer. And hey, if you have 5 in your bag, it's even better. I'm sitting on a flight from Atlanta to Charlotte. And, the plane, 2 seats, 1 seats. I was on the 1 seat and the guy next to me, we strike up a conversation. Hey, what do you do? I'm in the food industry. Okay, good. Me too. Hey, what do you do? I do this. Hey, this is so really cool. What are you passionate about? I was like, oh, I love writing books. He says, oh, you wrote a book? I said, yeah, I have 2 that I gave him 2. 3 days later, I get an email from him and said, hey, I happen to work for Lufthansa. Lufthansa at the time just bought Austrian Airlines. They said, hey, would you mind if we buy 25,000 copies for every first class customer coming in? We give him a free book, because at the time there were so many people upset that Lufthansa bought Austrian Airlines, so they wanted to get some people back. And now I was like, you know me. Yeah. What did I say? I said, oh yeah, we do that. I figured it out, and it was one of those. And then I was like, I had no idea what actually goes into it, but it was my first thing. And now I laugh because I get emails and texts from people, because I was also not smart enough to not giving my personal information. So I get texts and stuff all the time. Hey, what do you think of this dish? I was like, who the heck is that? I need to block him. And then I get, oh, no. We at the Austrian Cooking Club of Waco, Texas. We got your book. And what do you think? I was like, there's an Austrian Cooking Club in Waco, Texas, And I was like, I always said everybody needs a book, because a book does, in my opinion, 3 things. It exposes who you are. And actually, you will learn a lot about yourself. And you probably did too, writing your book.
Oh my goodness. Painful.
The second thing is, a book it allows you access to people you normally don't have access to. And the third thing, it allows you to be on a platform you normally wouldn't be. And what I mean by that is there was a study done. I forgot if it was MIT or Harvard. They looked at authors, and in the US market currently, an author is considered at the same level as a PhD. So can you imagine? You can write a book in 8 weeks and be on the same level as a PhD, which spent, hundreds of thousands to go to school, because in the eyes of the consumer. So it elevates your status. So, and now if you have a message which resonates with that, and if you could speak and provide solution in that message, it opens up a whole new world. And that's what we explore with our authors, which have a book on the marketplace.
That's incredible. Christian, I am so inspired by your lack of fear. And I love this concept and theme that you say yes and then you figure it out. I have been leaning more and more into that in my business. And I love it, because the opportunities and the doors that it opens for you and the way that it stretches you to be creative. And it is incredible. And I love that you've got the word create behind you for those that are listening and can't see, but it's incredible.
Yeah. So if you, I have this word create, and people always ask, what does it mean? I said, be creating conversation. So you need to talk to people. And it's really hard, especially now, we're so over-related yet underconnected. But the chair I'm sitting in, there was somebody talking to somebody, says, I have this idea of this chair. It can be half comfy. You can adjust the height. And somebody said, this is an amazing idea. Who's going to build it? And somebody said, oh yes, I built it, and they figured it out. And for me, because what we do is we create every day. We create in relationship. We create in impact. We create in knowledge. We create in how we serve. And it became kind of my word. So if somebody asks what we do, it says we create, and we have fun doing it.
I love it. Well, thank you for the amazing impact that you're making in the industry. It's just incredible. So you're an awesome human, and I love connecting with you. And thank you for sharing. I know you were sharing some fun stories before we got on, but I can't wait to follow your journey and see how else you're going to create in the industry. So thanks for being with me.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. And to your listeners, if I can be of service, please reach out to us. Really easy for us to get a hold of. You go to christianjfischer.com, which is our website. There's all our stuff in there. You can follow us on all of our social media sites. We're finally on TikTok, and I think we just hit 10 or 12,000 followers on TikTok.
Incredible.
So it's a whole new thing we learned. So I absolutely agree. So for everybody listening, go out there and create.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for your time. And please forward this episode on to anyone in the industry that you think could benefit. We'll talk to you soon.